Hello and welcome to the No Huddle Podcast. I hope you guys all had some phenomenal holidays. As you guys can obviously tell, I am back home. I actually have a flight that is leaving in a few hours. So for me, it's bright and early in the morning. Well, I don't know if you can call it 9 a.m. bright and early in the morning, but as a college student, that's what it feels like. Yeah, and I had to get out of pod here before I hop on my flight. But we had to come on here and we had to talk some football because week 13, man, was unbelievable. I'm going to be honest. When I saw the slate post Thanksgiving, I kind of thought we'd be in for a rough one. And then the afternoon slate came, and it was like, I don't know about this one. But then we had a pretty good Sunday night game to make up for it, which was great. And then as for Thanksgiving and Black Friday, man, I loved this week of football. I talked about it on the previous week's pod, but Thanksgiving is like my favorite holiday ever, just because we get a ton of good food and we get football all throughout the week. I was watching football Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because I got to watch obviously the triple header on Thursday with Thanksgiving. Friday we got Black Friday game. Saturday I got to watch Northwestern lose to Illinois. That was unfortunate. God damn it, Preston Stone. And then on Sunday, of course, we had my Niners play. By the way, this is way more Niners gear than I usually wear because I like to talk about every team and try and avoid any bias. But today, for one, I'm at home. And then two, I wanted to break out this hat here and see if anyone can get the reference in the comments. If you do, let me know. It's been a few years since this particular hat was worn by a certain someone. The only hint I will give you is that it is the only hat I can ever remember that is nicknamed by that has like a coach's name in it. So if you can get it, hey, just put that shit in the comments. Before we get started, I just gotta quickly ask for one favor here. We are only 19 subscribers away from 100. If you're listening on YouTube, please give us a subscription here. The goal was 100 by the end of this football season, and it looks like we might be able to get it before 2026, which would be absolutely amazing. Thank you guys so much. And with that needless promo and shill out of the way, again, I am so sorry. Let's go on here, and let's start with Sunday Night Football. Now, I'm going to be honest. When I saw Broncos Commanders on the slate, I thought, you know what? We're gonna get it. We're gonna get the week nice and early. We're gonna get it nice done. I'm not gonna sit there and watch 17-3, or you know what? I will because it's kind of what I have to do for this podcast. But I thought it was gonna be, watch the first half affair, realize the score is 7-0, and it will stay 7-0. But oh boy, was I absolutely wrong, because the Broncos and the Commanders gave us one heck of a game that had me on the edge of my seat for 4 hours, which I did not expect. An amazing overtime thriller. I could be wrong on this, but I got it from what I can remember. We've only had a few overtime games since the overtime rule changes, and I think this is the first time where I'm going to bring up some PTSD for my Niners fans here. The first time we saw this new overtime in action was the Super Bowl, the Niners and the Chiefs. And the Chiefs came out and said that, there was this big controversy of should the Niners have taken the ball, because then the Chiefs said, even if, we get the ball second, for one, we get the fourth down advantage. And then two, we knew we would go for it on the 2-point conversion and not give them the third possession. And, we had to sit with that, okay. But we never got to see what that actually looked like. And we've waited 2 long years to see what that would look like in action, where in overtime we have a 2-point conversion. Both teams score a touchdown, and we get a 2-point conversion for the game. And Nick Bonito, man, made an unbelievable play. Not only it's it's just a tip ball. Mariota threw not a bad ball. I went back and I saw that. But he just tipped it. Should he have thrown it extremely sky high? Yeah, probably. But I also don't think he expected Nick Bonito to come in unblocked and absolutely tip that and get his mitts on that ball and slap that away, because it was so open. It was wide open for the taking. That is a brutal loss, even if in the long run it probably does help the Commanders. But hey, I'm gonna give so much credit to the Commies. Put up a hell of a fight against a 10-2, really freaking good Broncos team. And we're going to talk about Broncos discourse in a bit here. But for the Commies, let's just give them some love right now, because Marcus Mariota had such a great game. It was so much fun to watch. Granted, when this dude throws jump passes, I sort of get a little frustrated with him, especially when he throws jump passes right to the other team's linebackers. Both quarterbacks had a horrible interception thrown to linebackers where I just don't know where the hell they were throwing the ball, what they were seeing, because Mariota obviously had the jump pass to Dre Greenlaw, which, Dre Greenlaw, I met him in real life. He is such a cool dude. So happy to see him have success in Denver. But on the Commanders side, I mean, Bo Nix just threw it literally to Bobby Wagner. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know why the hell Bobby Wagner's playing at this point. I don't care that he had an interception and is like probably really good in the stat sheet when it comes to tackles, but he is so slow and flat-footed, and the Broncos were literally targeting him all game. Evan Ingram has done literally nothing with the Broncos. And in this game, my God, it felt like you were watching like prime Travis Kelce because he would just always come wide open, especially as we got later in the fourth quarter and overtime. Bobby Wagner just stopped trying. They just stopped guarding him because he's an old-ass man. He's like 36 years old trying to guard these young-ass tight ends who could run a 4.5 40. And I can't blame him because he shouldn't be out there. He should be in a mentoring role. But the Commanders have a ton of injuries, and they've stuck to Bobby Wagner, so they kind of have to live with it now. But yeah, that he is hampering the hell out of that defense. But besides that point, on the offensive side with Mariota, remember this is a Commanders team that, if you look at the running back room, they don't really have that good of a running back. I'd argue their best running back is probably like Chris Rodriguez, or it's definitely not JCM, who I picked in fantasy. That was rough. It's not Bill Krosky-Merritt. They were running with like most teams as running back threes, running back fours, and they're still finding a way to get some explosives out of it, which is really impressive. Give credit to Cliff Kingsbury and that offensive coaching staff for honestly coaching a really good game plan. Getting 26 points in Denver, regardless of whether it's overtime or not, is extremely impressive. And Terry, I'm gonna be honest, I was shocked to see Terry actually get the production that he did. He was open multiple more times than the 7 catches he got, but Mariota just kind of sailed a few passes on him, which it's a backup quarterback, it's to be expected. But especially considering he was pretty much on Surtain the whole game, him getting doing relatively well and actually getting what could have been the game-winning catch was pretty cool to see. For the Commanders, again, in the long run, is it better to lose this game? Yeah, probably. Because if you look at one of the tiebreakers when it comes to draft seeding, it's not like strength of schedule, it's strength of victory. And if they had this victory with the 10-2 Broncos on their board, it probably not only does it hurt them the record, but any tiebreaker, it probably slides them down. So there's no telling how many like draft spots this saves the Commanders. But I'm not gonna I'm being fully transparent. Like, I know that's not what they're thinking in the locker room. I know that's not what they're thinking. It's like, oh, thank God we saved our draft seeding. But it was a pretty important game in that respect to lose. But I'm gonna be honest, with Mariota, there's like they can kind of beat anybody, especially in the NFL right now. I wouldn't be shocked if they get one on Philly. I wouldn't be too surprised by that. Or I think they still have one game left against Dallas. I wouldn't be surprised if they randomly steal a game against Dallas too, because this team's really fun, especially with Mariota at QB. I think Jaden could be back next week. If I were them, of course, you don't rush it. You don't need to. They are 3-9. The postseason is well away from them at this point. But I also don't see a reason to rush him back right now just because Mariota's playing well. The offense is it's clicking enough to where you don't need to rush your quarterback back. It's not like a disaster where everyone's going to get fired. It's understandable. They sort of just had the quintessential Niners year of, well, your entire team is injured, so what are you going to do about it? But they ended up playing a really solid game. Let's move on to the Broncos. I think that's also probably the last time I'm going to talk about the Commanders on the show, unless, of course, they have, another massive upset or almost beat this contender. So, if that was all for the Commanders this year, at least on the podcast, it's been fun talking about you. It sucks that the year ended up this way, but hey, I still remember, one of the first comments I ever got was, start talking about the Commanders more. And it was right before the Bears game, so that ended up kind of being the beginning of the end for them. But hey, that's unfortunate for them. Let's talk about the Broncos here. Broncos are 10-2 with this win. And man, it's so interesting with this Broncos team because it feels like any given week you will get a completely different team. Not only any given week, but any given quarter in the week. Throughout the first 8 to 9 weeks of the year, they will dick around for the first 3 quarters, and they will put their head in the sand, host a little ballroom dance. I don't know, however you want to put it. Especially that offense, they would just sort of just wait around, and then the fourth quarter come and be like, "Oh shoot, we have a game to play," and then they would actually start clicking. But they'd actually start clicking. Sorry. The Broncos for the most part on offense again, they were playing the Commanders, which means that they got to play Bobby Wagner in that not great linebacking core, and they got to play some pretty not great corners. But Bo Nix had himself a pretty solid game. Again, besides that interception, I don't understand what the hell he was seeing. Like, I understand he's trying to hit the backside dig, but to just literally look at the linebacker and just not process the fact that he is in front of you, that's a little unfortunate. But when it comes to the Broncos, like when it comes to this game, it is nothing. It's out of the ordinary. It is a very typical Broncos game, and that they kind of just played down to competition, and then eventually at the end, they relied on the fact that they win pretty much every clutch game to again win a clutch game. But what I'm more interested to talk about with the Broncos is the discourse around them, because more than any other team this year, I'm hearing fraud watch. I'm hearing 11-0 Steelers. And I feel like any other, by the way, when I say 11-0 Steelers, I'm referencing the 2020 Steelers team that went 11-0 and then proceeded to lose like 4 out of their next 5 and get bounced in the wild card round. But when I'm talking about, now that we're going on to the Broncos here, I feel like any other year I would probably see those concerns a lot more. I would be like, okay, yeah, this is fair. They're getting inconsistent quarterback play. Like, what is the mark of a fraud or 11-0 Steelers kind of team? And it's like very inconsistent quarterback play. The whole team plays up and down, playing down to competition, all that sort. But this year, especially in the AFC, I don't think you can call anybody a fraud. You look down, you go down the list, and it's like you have the Patriots as the 1 seed, who is an extremely young team, and frankly, they're way ahead of schedule. Like they still have a good bit of holes on the roster that they need to fix up, but they're getting unbelievable play out of their quarterback and other skill positions, so it's working. You look at a team like all the AFC South, besides, in my opinion, Houston, which we're going to talk about it a little bit later. Like one of them has Daniel Jones at their quarterback, the other one has Trevor Lawrence at their quarterback. So the Broncos have an advantage when it comes to those teams. You go to, of course, the AFC North, and it's like every team there is freaking falling apart. The Ravens look horrible on Thanksgiving. And, of course, the Steelers just lost 26-7. Like, I feel like the most scary team out of the North right now is probably Cincinnati. So I don't think you can call any team in the AFC a fraud anymore just because, well, to be blunt, they kind of all are. Right? Like, any given year, they would be the teams that you would just be like, whatever. They're not going to win. But this year, we're probably going to end up with 7 of those teams. So calling any team right now a fraud in the AFC just doesn't feel right. I feel like Broncos fans want me to come on and be like, no, they're not frauds because of, like, look at this. But I'm going to be honest, it's just like there is no fraud if everyone is kind of a fraud. So I think the Broncos have a real good shot at this. Even if I don't like the fact that they get really inconsistent quarterback play, and a lot of the times it doesn't feel like Bo Nix and Sean Payton are in rhythm. And, if they aren't going to get J.K. Dobbins back for the stretch run, because one of the big things when I talked about the Broncos in weeks past is how much I loved their run game, right? Because J.K. Dobbins had been playing unbelievable. And he was like, it felt like he was one of the better backs in the league. And then now he suffers yet another injury, which is really unfortunate because I really did love the way he was playing football. But he suffers an injury, and now it's R.J. Harvey in the backfield, and Harvey is clearly still, learning things because he hadn't had too many reps with the Broncos just yet. And the run game now goes to 13 carries for 35 yards against a really not great run defense. So they need to figure out a way to get that run game going, even with Dobbins gone, or they need to pray that Dobbins just comes back for the stretch run. I'm not too sure when he would come back. I think there was some hope of him coming for like an AFC Championship or Super Bowl or whatever. But if that's the case, like it's going to be really hard for this Broncos team to win deep in the postseason without that run game. Like I think if the Broncos run game was better, I'd be sitting here and clamoring for them a lot more than I am right now. But hey, if Harvey can, have a breakout game and they can start running the ball well, then maybe I could see it, because the Broncos formula to winning games is one that in the past with Dobbins was a recipe for success in the postseason, right? You have a really, really strong run game, an amazing offensive line, and then on defense, you just have a bunch of killers out there, right? You have PS2 shutting down one full side of the field. You have a great linebacking core in Alex Singleton, who, his story, by the way, was unbelievable. He found out he had testicular cancer a week or two ago, and then he had a tumor removed last week, missed the game. But hey, you know what? Next week, ball tumor's gone. Let's go. Let's run it. And that's really freaking cool. I'm happy you shared that story, because I don't know how many people would have like the brave ability to put on a face and like tell that story to the people because it's a really cool story. That story made me happy. Not only Singleton, you have Greenlaw, right? Who's every week starting to get more better and more back from the injury. We saw the interception this last game, and Riley Moss is starting to get better, even though he was someone I criticized a lot. He's getting better in that respect. They have an amazing nickel corner who they highlighted on the broadcast a million times. I don't know why I'm thinking McLaughlin. His name is not McLaughlin, but he's been McMillan. Sorry, that's what I'm thinking. I'm pretty sure it's McMillan. I could be wrong. I apologize if I am. But he's shutting down like the slot part of the field too, and they have good safety play. So there's so many things to like with the Broncos team, especially on defense. It's just the main thing that concerns me is the offense, and with Bo Nix just being so inconsistent. I'm not going to argue like he's not. He's an extremely talented quarterback. I think the discourse around Bo Nix is wrong. I think the national media sees him as like this untalented system quarterback. But when you watch him play, that is not at all what you see. He has a hell of a cannon arm, right? And he has this ability to make these unbelievable throws. He had 3 separate throws in the Washington game where you watch that and it's like, there's not many freaking quarterbacks in the league who can make that throw. But he can't. It's just my frustration with him is how inconsistent he can be. Because when he is clicking, my God, this Broncos team is unstoppable. We've seen that. Hell, in the fourth quarter of these games, we see that to the point where the whole entire offense could dick around, be down in a 2-possession score, be down 2 possessions, and they could still find a way to win because Bo Nix clicks for just 1 quarter, and that defense is just amazing. So it all works. So for the Broncos, it's just going to be a question of if Bo Nix and this offense can get hot heading into the postseason. And then from there, if they are, holy shit, we might be seeing Denver come up to Santa Clara. That's what I'm going to say for that. Moving on, strong statement to end on. I like it. Let's go to the Packers and the Lions. 31-24, really fun game. A great way to kick off Thanksgiving. Love waking up. It's like, it's Thanksgiving. Most people are excited about the food, the family, and here I am, just like, yeah, we can start with Packers Lions. And for the Lions, let's just talk about what has gone wrong here. They are now 7-5-1. In 2 days from when I am filming this, they will play the Cowboys in what is our first, I would just say, postseason adjacent game. It is like for both of these teams, if they win, they still have a pretty good shot to make the postseason, especially Detroit. If they beat the Cowboys, they have a pretty good shot to make the postseason. But if they don't, it is going to be one hell of an uphill battle. It's pretty much the point where I'd say they're eliminated. And then obviously on the Cowboys side of it, they would be eliminated with the loss to Detroit. As for what has gone wrong here, it's kind of odd with Detroit because we knew they lost Frank Ragnow heading into the year to retirement. And then now, of course, it was like, oh, he's coming back. And then it's the Aaron Rodgers meme where he is back for all of 24 hours before they realize, oh, shit, you have a torn hamstring. Probably don't run that one back just yet. So he's unfortunately going to be out for them and not playing this year. And I was curious, right? Like, what the hell? Why does Jahmyr Gibbs have 20 carries for 63 yards? So that was my focus on film review for this game. And I watched it, and it's like, well, shit, Jahmyr Gibbs is still playing unbelievable football. You still look at the way he cuts. It's kind of unbelievable. He still can, like, glide like no one else. So if he's not the problem, then what is? And it's the offensive line. It's not great. There's so many free rushes that the Packers had in this game where it's not, you think of free rushes like mostly a pass game thing. But in this one, like, my God, their run gaps or their run, I'm struggling, gap scheme. That's the word I'm looking for. They were just struggling like against that because the Packers have so many guys who just shoot up like the A gap or the B gap. And it was just, the play was dead to rights because there's nothing you can do. So for the Lions, I mean, whether that's a failure on the offensive line or the play calling, you know what? I'm going to be fully honest, I'm not too sure. If I were to guess, I think that the play call probably was sound enough. It's just that they needed guards to kick out instead of sticking on double teams for as long as they did. Or, of course, the Packers might have just played a really good game on the defensive line and busted up any plans they had. We kind of have no way of knowing. But, like, if the Lions can't run the ball, then you are missing the main part of the Detroit Lions. That is scary, right? Because everything builds off that for the Lions pass game. When the run game is clicking to the level that Detroit's run game usually is, of course, when you have Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield, right? Then it sort of sets up everything on the play action pass because Goff is unbelievable in play action. Like, he's a 9-year vet. He was with McVay, and then he was with Ben Johnson. So he's really good at, like, being able to go under center, turn his back to the defense, fake a handoff, turn around, and read coverages really well. And that's where he feasts. That's where this Lions offense becomes, the Lions. And I think everyone wants to look at the Lions right now and just say, oh, they're missing Ben Johnson. It's Ben Johnson. That's the national media narrative of look at Ben Johnson being 9-3 in Chicago, and now look at the Lions. And it's like, and they're like saying, well, that's what it is. It's because of Ben Johnson. And I'm not saying that Ben Johnson's loss hasn't hurt them. I'm saying that the main problem with this team is the offensive line when it comes to the offense side of the ball. Because they are just, again, Ragnow I know is gone. And I know Zeitler is gone. Those are the two, their center and guard from last year. But I think Ratledge is a good player. I think he's a talented player. So who's their new right guard, their rookie right guard? But they just need it has been rough to watch. Like, they are so inconsistent. They are so up and down. I was curious, so I did like some PFF stat checking, which PFF has gotten its fair share of criticism, and it is fair criticism of, like, it feels like in recent years it has not been as good as it was in the past. But, like, this game, they had like a run blocking grade of in the low 50s, which they've only had like 4 times all of last year. And then in the pass blocking, it was the same. Yeah, and that just seeing that dip in the offensive line production has been particularly brutal for them. But let's also move to the other side of the ball when it comes to Detroit. And this is a team that plays a lot of man coverage, right? This has been their formula with Aaron Glenn, and now with the new DC is we're going to play a lot of time man coverage. That's why they paid DJ Reed $16 million per year, because that's what he's really good at. And now watching this team, the only way that just straight man coverage is going to work is if you have like unbelievable sticky corners, which this Lions team just does not. I think they wanted Tyrion Arnold to be that guy out of Alabama, but not only is he now out for the year, but he has just not been that guy. So what then you need really good pass rush. And let's talk about that with the Lions, because that is exactly what they are not getting. They had 0 sacks this game, and I'm going to be honest, it didn't feel like Jordan Love was uncomfortable at all. I think the last third down in the game, he did make one throw under pressure, but for the most part, that defensive line was not doing anything. Not only could they not stop Josh Jacobs, but the Packers could just kind of did what they wanted all game. There's so much attention being thrown at Aiden Hutchinson. They're not, whether that's double teams or chips and stuff like that, which is way more than they usually had, because they usually had a really good running mate beside him. Whether you want to look at like his rookie year with a guy like James Houston, who had like 8 sacks in 9 games, whether you want to go back to last year and it was Adarius Smith on the other side of the ball. Now it doesn't feel like it feels like they just don't kind of have that other guy. So what's happening is there's so much attention on Aiden Hutchinson, and it's just a lot. And it's like, okay, can anyone else on that defensive line beat us? And the answer right now is no. So it's now allowing those corners and the safeties to get cooked on the back end, especially with Kirby Joseph out. And it's a mess. It's not the Lions football we're used to. When you look on paper, it's like you still see Jared Goff, you still see Jahmyr Gibbs, you still see Penei Sewell, you still see Aiden Hutchinson, you still see you still see Jack Campbell, and Brian Branch, and it feels like, okay, no, the core piece of the Lions are still here, right? This should still be the juggernaut team we've seen the last few years. But, which, by the way, Lions and juggernaut together, even after them being good for the last 3 years, still feels weird to say. But that's exactly what they've been. They won 15 games last year, even with all of their injuries. But this year, it feels like it's no dice. And for the Lions, they are now, like I mentioned at the beginning here, they are now 7-5-1 with a do-or-die game on freaking Prime Video Thursday night in Week 14. I don't know if anyone would have expected that. For the Lions season to potentially end on Week 14, it was going to be an insane, electric game on Thursday night. I'm actually so excited and looking forward to that. Let's move to the Green Bay side of it, because when it comes to the Lions, like, that's the main things I had to talk about was their trench play, because that's what's been the difference in this team. So moving on to Green Bay, Jordan Love played one of the best games of his career in a spot where they absolutely needed him to. If the Packers had lost this game, they would have slid down to the 3rd in that division, and they would be in the Lions spot where it's going to be really hard for them to try and get any progress, especially with the tiebreakers they would have against, or especially when it comes to their tiebreakers and stuff, because they've lost so many stupid NFC games. Looking at you, Carolina. But Jordan Love comes up clutch. So many big conversions on that last drive, and in particular that 4th down call to Christian Watson, where he just hits an absolute beauty while getting drilled. I really did like that call out of Matt LaFleur because I'm not trusting, like, even though that defense is so good for Green Bay, if you have 3 yards to go win the game, just trust the offense to do it, especially if you have like any modicum of, trust in your offense. It's worth it to try and just go win the game there. Jacobs was back in a nice way. He ended up with 83 yards on the ground, and he was looking really solid for them. I know I touched on Emmanuel Wilson a few weeks ago and how I liked what he's brought to this offense, but if you can get Jacobs going, that is always the best and number one option. And for these receivers, let's give them a lot of credit, because when you look at the Packers, it's like, oh, they have a bunch of receiver twos. Like, I think Jaden Reed, whenever he comes back, is going to be a high-end receiver too. Not high-end, low-end, sorry. Low-end receiver too. I think Romeo Doubs is a receiver too. I think Christian Watson right now is a receiver too, even though he will be the receiver one at some point for this team. And Dontavian Wicks is kind of like a receiver 3. And when you're playing Detroit, where, again, it is sticky man coverage 60% of the time. So you need to have guys who can just beat man. Like, sometimes it's very rarely. But in this case, you can attribute it to like a game of Madden. You need your receivers to go beat stupid man coverage, which has been so good in Madden for like 6 years. That pisses me off. But that's besides the point. You need guys who can get open, separate, and give them credit. They did. They absolutely did. I love Christian Watson. I have talked about him on this podcast pretty much every time I have talked about the Packers, because I fully believe that he and Jordan Love might be 2 of the most important players in the entire conference, because we know how good that defense is with Micah and them. Oh my God, right? But Jordan Love has been inconsistent. Christian Watson for his whole career has been inconsistent, but we can see the physical talent that got him drafted like near the top of the second round, borderline first round pick. And when they can get it clicking, it looks so good. It looks so effortless. Like that deep shot that they had near, I want to say, the top of the third quarter, where Christian Watson just catches this, just tracks the ball in the air. Jordan Love throws it to the sky, and it just seems so perfect. And it's like, that's the Green Bay offense I know we can have. It's not the offense that we get on a week-to-week basis, but my God, it's the offense I know we can have. Green Bay and Denver, to me, are so similar in that they have these amazing defenses with star players, star edge rushers, but they just need consistent offense. And I think Green Bay has a lot better of a shot for that offense to become consistent, just because I trust Matt LaFleur a little bit more, which might not be a popular opinion, but I do think LaFleur is a great coach. And I think the Packers have more talent on the offensive side of the ball. But, I think that, again, Green Bay is the most logical. Yeah, that's how I'm going to phrase it. It's the most logical pick out of the NFC if you look at on paper, right? And I got a lot of shit when I said that Green Bay had a top 3 roster in the NFL. Holy shit. I did not expect that to be such a divisive opinion. But I stand by that. That is absolutely correct. And you can see that now with them being 8-3-1 and being a really, really good team. And for the Packers, if they can get this offense clicking, it is going to be unbelievably difficult to stop them at this point. I want to shout out a few things on their defense real quick. Holding Jahmyr Gibbs to 63 yards of offense, regardless of the line play, is insane, because it means that whenever he does get free, they did a good job of wrapping him up. They didn't allow those 15-yard gains to be 75-yard gains. Looking at you, New York Giants. But outside of that, they did a relatively good job. Even when Gibbs did get out on space, they contained him really well. They made sure he wasn't the reason they lost this game. That is the easiest way to lose to Detroit. Not only that, but when Amon-Ra St. Brown came out of the game, they did a relatively good-ish job on that Lions passing offense. I know that Jared Goff did finish with really good numbers, but they held overall the Lions offense to just 24 points, which I think is still pretty hard to do considering it is the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff and Jameson Williams are still kind of those dudes. I really do love them. So that was give credit to Green Bay's defense in that respect as well. And they do this thing with Micah Parsons that I love. It is one of the big reasons I love the Cowboys trading for Quentin Williams so much. It is because interior pass rush in the modern NFL is so rare, and my God, is it so good. Because most teams or a lot of the teams, I'd say over half at this point, follow some adaptation of the McVay, Shanahan, whatever you want to call it. I call it the Shanahan scheme, where they value guards with speed, right? Guards that can run on their ass, get on the second level, and block linebackers, right? And what that has created is a desire for guards that are just quick and not necessarily the strongest. Interior offensive line that are mostly focused on quickness, not strength. So what that has meant is that, for one, the guard position just isn't valued as much as it used to when it comes to like true pass protecting beast guards, which is why Gray Zabel, who is a guaranteed Pro Bowler, like I have no other way to put it, Gray Zabel was guaranteed to be good. There is no way Gray Zabel would have been a bust. No, not one person had that opinion because it would have been the incorrect opinion to have. Gray Zabel went 18th in the draft because it is just not that valued anymore, right? Because people think, oh, if all we need is speed, we can get a speedy interior lineman in the middle of the draft or the late rounds of the draft. Looking at you, San Francisco. Piss me off. Oh, my God. But it is now created so that a lot of teams just don't have the greatest interior offensive lines, right? Outside of like Philadelphia. So if you get in a really good interior pass rusher, you can, for lack of a better word, fuck shit up pretty well. And if you don't have that in Green Bay's case, because, that's just not, they traded away Kenny Clark because he was past his prime. But if you can just line up Micah in the middle of the field and he can bull rush people, it creates some good stuff. Not only did Micah have a few pancakes against Minnesota, where he just shoved the center, Brendel, on his ass. In this game, too, he was wreaking havoc from that interior spot. And, my God, he was so good. He ended up finishing like 2 or 2.5 sacks. I'm not too particularly sure. But when it comes to Micah, I don't really care about the sacks. Like, if he finishes with 1 sack or 2 sacks, it can, like, that 1 sack game he had against Minnesota was dominant. Like, that was one of the better games I've seen any defensive player have all year, despite the fact that it just showed up on the stat sheet as 1 sack. Because he was just destroying the play every single time. And in this Lions game, even though he had more sacks, I more or less didn't feel any difference because he was so freaking good. And the amount of times that he blew up plays, Micah has really found his role in this defense. It took some time, which, he's a new player into this scheme, so it'll take anybody time. But he has been awesome for them. I really do. I'm very excited to see how this ends, if he can keep this up. And I want to see if they keep this interior rush stuff up because it can be so easy to be like, oh, he's a good edge rusher. Let's just put him on the edge. But using him as like a chess piece on the board, like you can put him anywhere and he's going to be so dominant. And I really do love him putting him on the interior. It feels like that is what has unlocked him. So I'm curious to see how they keep it up. Okay. And then the last point I want to talk about here. Week 14 next week, Bears Packers. Oh my. The Bears Eagles game was one of the biggest games this week, and I'm not going to talk about it on the pod because I know I'm going to talk about Bears Packers next week. But frankly, both of these teams, I am so much rides on that game. It is going to be absurd. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. It's going to be an electric game. I'm so excited for that. Frankly, for all of the praise I've given Green Bay, it will effectively be thrown out the window if they don't beat Chicago, right? This game meets everything to them. So let's see if they can get it done. All right. Last game we're going to be talking about here before we get to little tidbits. We have the other after non-blowout Thanksgiving game, and that's the Chiefs and the Cowboys. Now, let me say, when I tell you I am trying to be as unbiased as possible on this show, that really does apply to one team here, and that is Kansas City. Because it right now would be so easy to just point at them, laugh, put a big smile on my face, as they are pretty much barring a 5-0 stretch run here, eliminated from the playoffs. And not only that, they in all likelihood had their season ended by the Dallas Cowboys. So you can see here, I'm trying not to smile and laugh at that. So I'm going to give myself like 20 seconds of just to, gloat a little bit, have this smile on my face. And you know what? We're going to remove it. Okay, let's start talking about this game because the Chiefs offense was freaking clicking on all cylinders this week. And for the Chiefs, like, my God, that is a very much week-to-week thing with them. But Mahomes had himself, again, besides the overthrows, which seemed to be a trend this year, whenever he didn't overthrow his guys, he was playing unbelievable. He had this insane play to keep them alive near the end of the game where they were down 10, and he is falling. For all intents and purposes, the play is dead. But he somehow is able to stay up just long enough, to get it to his receiver 50 yards down the field. It was an insane play. I'm pretty sure it's the Hollywood Brown. And yeah, like that Chiefs offense was doing great. I had Travis Kelce in fantasy. That was good too. But this week it was the defense who failed them time and time again. I have sung the praises of Trent McDuffie for a long time. Pretty much, we've had to talk about Kansas City and Philadelphia because those were our two Super Bowl teams. We've had to talk about Kansas City a lot on the podcast. So, and every time I sing the praises of Trent McDuffie. I talk about how good he is, how he shuts down one side of the field. That was not the case this game. Not only is it just really, really hard to guard CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens in man coverage, and that's what the Chiefs love to do with Trent McDuffie, is put him in sticky man coverage and shut down a receiver. Not only is it really hard to do that, but like I would argue it's borderline impossible with the way those two are playing right now. And yeah, you could tell. The Chiefs corners, let's just say, love to hold. And this game, the refs were not having none of it. This has been like a foundational aspect of the Chiefs defense for a while, is to slightly grab on those receivers. Don't make it super obvious. Make it so the fans at home are yelling at them, not the referees. But this game, absolutely none of it. And I'm going to be honest, a lot of people were giving shit to the officials for this game, but I'm going to give them credit because calling those calls can seem like dumb or ticky-tack. But my God, it has been the foundation as to why these Chiefs corners can be so hard to beat is because of those slight grabs. And again, that is the first time in 5 years they didn't let him do it. And that was insane to watch for me, especially against, I'm trying to not be biased here, but when you saw so many almost holdings against us in the Super Bowl, and sometimes it is so frustrating to watch. But them getting absolutely none of that favoritism bullshit was nice to see. Besides that point, the main problem right now for Kansas City is just their lack of pass rush. Not only it feels like Chris Jones at the beginning of the year very much was not trying as hard. Maybe he was under the mindset that they were just going to go 15-2 and he can lock in for the playoffs. But he had so many moments where he's just like the effort was clearly not there. And pretty recently, he started to click it back up, which because he's like, oh shit, we might be eliminated from the playoffs. Let's lock in. But sorry, they paid Karlaftis the big bucks this year, and he had been a consistent 8 to 9 sack guy. Not only that, but he'd get like a ton of pressure and he'd be really good in the run game. And it seems like he has gotten paid, and now he has decided to relax. He has just not been the same guy at all, and you can tell. Like, the Chiefs' defensive line used to work so well just because you had Jones and you had Karlaftis, right? That's part of what has made them so hard to stop. And you could pretty much insert anyone else next to them, and it would have worked. But, my God, this with Karlaftis struggling and Jones, like, just being an older guy, it has made so they just don't get any pressure anymore. Unless Spags up calls the 7-man blitz. And credit to Dak Prescott in this game because he had answers for those blitzes basically every time. With the exception of the first drive where he threw the interception, Dak against the blitz was pretty much perfect this game. And that was huge for them. Absolutely huge. And then, so not only that, could the defense have like those issues and penalties and pass rush, but they just couldn't get off the field in third and long. That was like the crucial play. The Chiefs offense scored with about 4 minutes left in the game, and the Cowboys just were able to march on the field and just kill all the rest of the clock. Mahomes didn't get the ball back again this year. That is something where Spagnuolo felt like my big thing with Spags is prior to last year where it felt like his defense was carrying. My thing was, is his offense going to sometimes, or his defense going to allow sometimes like 20 to 30 points per game? Yeah, because it's natural. It's the NFL. There are a lot of really good offenses out there. But the big thing with Spags is that whenever you need that stop most, he will get it for you. I'm going to go back to the Super Bowl a few years ago against Philadelphia, right? They completely shut him out. They hold Philadelphia to that 3-and-out. And then guess what? They're able to get that big punt return. And then there's confetti and banners raised in Kansas City. You go to the Super Bowl against us, right? In overtime, they hold us to 3. Again, a banner raised in Kansas City. You go to the Bengals AFC Championship a few years ago. They're able to get that one stop on Joe Burrow to get the ball back. And what do you know? There's a banner raised in Kansas City. So it is sometimes as simple as just like when it came to the Spags, it was how much being the value of the one stop. And this year, it has been the complete inverse. Anytime they've needed that defense to lock in and get a stop, they just cannot do it. In a game, with the exception of the Colts game. But you look at the Chargers game in week 1. The Chargers have 3rd and 13. Justin Herbert scrambles, picks up a first down, ball game. You go to then this game, and it's so many third downs in a row, and they can't get the stop again. I can even point to like the Jacksonville game. There's so many games I can point to where it's just they just didn't get the clutch stop. And yeah, here we are. They are 6-6, and it just doesn't feel like the Chiefs. That is what I've been saying all year. I think a lot more people are shocked by this than I was. To be honest, I don't do a predictions segment. I don't do predictions or previews on the show just because I like to naturally react and watch film when it comes to football rather than like make educated guesses. But if I were to have done a predictions, I would have picked Dallas because I just didn't think Kansas City was playing great football this year, and that's exactly what it is again. I don't know why there are people shocked at this result. It has been nothing necessarily unexpected. When you've watched the Chiefs through the first few weeks, you could just tell that this is not the Kansas City Chiefs we know. I'm going to talk about the Chiefs offense here for a bit. I think that they are dodging a lot of the blame for the season, in particular one Patrick Mahomes, who is dodging blame for this season because, they saw the Cowboys game and it's like, oh, well, look, the offense was here. They see the fourth quarter of the Colts game and it's like, well, the offense was here, but it's just the defense. Like, for all the shit I just gave the defense in the last my recording, 5 minutes, that is not the only problem on this team. My God, the Mahover throw is real. It's to the point where they're missing what feels like an extra touchdown a game just because Mahomes has been horrendously inaccurate. He has been one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in all of football this year, which is crazy to say, and I know that might get me some shit, but Mahomes has just not been like a great quarterback this year. I know he can still do amazing things. I know he can make these insane plays that somehow keep his team in it. Whether that, again, going back to the Chargers game, because these games were very similar, whether that's, him making an insane play 60 yards down the field where he's falling, which I can't believe he did in both of these games. He can 100% do things that we frankly have never seen any other quarterback can do. But that doesn't excuse him from blame of just missing your freaking open throws, of just sailing a few balls. You have these receivers. When I talked about Kansas City, I talked about the speed of their receiving core as well. And they have open receivers. And a lot of times they're open deep. And my God, it feels like Mahomes could just not click with them for the love of God. And it's one of those things where, of course, I look at it and it's like, at the beginning of the year, that shocked me. I'm like, my jaw was on the floor. And it's like, really? Mahomes missed that pass? But now it's like, oh, Mahomes missed that. Yeah, he misses that pass 70% of the time. So I think Mahomes is dodging a lot of blame here when, frankly, he is not exempt from any of it, regardless of how well he's played in the last 5 quarters. So I'm also going to talk about the Chiefs' run game here for a sec. That Chiefs' run game, I have been very open on this podcast about how if the Chiefs want to do anything this year, they need to change up their running back. And Kareem Hunt didn't play bad again this game. They brought back Isaiah Pacheco, who did all of maybe like 3 fantasy points for my brother. I told him not to start him, but he did. Pacheco didn't do all too much for him, and like it's the same problem as in I think their run game could work. I don't think their interior offensive line is pretty good, but they just don't. They don't have the running back, so they can't really run the ball that well. And Kareem Hunt again is probably good for like 2 yards, 2 to 4 yards, but outside of that, I don't know. Not the biggest Kareem Hunt guy. Also for the Chiefs, more bad news for them. Their really good rookie left tackle, who has been like prior to the personal issue he had, was like one of the better, had kept getting better and better every week. Now he has a like fractured hand injury or wrist or something like that. So he's going to be out probably for the remainder of the regular season. So that's a big injury for them, especially when they're playing the Texans next week. And I know that their starting right tackle is out, Jauan Taylor, but if I'm being honest, he's basically a backup. So I don't know how much that will actually affect them. So yeah, but it's not looking good for them. And I think that their season will effectively end on Sunday against Houston. Let's move on to the Cowboys side of it. That is enough donkey on Kansas City, regardless of how much I enjoy it. For Dallas, Dak Prescott just played so well in this game. I know he had the rough interception start, but Kansas City was throwing so many of these exotic blitzes at him because, frankly, they couldn't cover on the back end. And every time, the key to stop it as a quarterback, when you see these big-ass blitzes come at you, is to not panic, sit in the pocket, oftentimes acknowledge that you're going to take a hit, and throw where the blitzer is coming from, right? I don't know what the technical, I think it's literally just like blitz replacement. I'm not too sure what the technical term is, but you just replace where that defender was, you throw the ball. And every time, give him credit, Dak was able to find that blitz replacement. Even if a lot of times it wasn't where the defender was coming from because Spags, just calls up some really nice shit. It would be able to like lean back on one side and just chuck it and towards his receiver, one of his receivers on a tight one-on-one. And pretty much, it's George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. they'd find a way. Give credit to CD, a really good rebound game from him after struggling against Philadelphia, which he did both of the games this year. And he was really good for them. Felt like we were seeing old school CD Lamb again, which is always just fun for the league. And George Pickens, I mean, how much more is there to say? I sung his praises last week. He made my thumbnail, which usually means you're a pretty good player if you make the thumbnail, or you did something disastrously bad. But no, Pickens was amazing. He consistently did his thing, especially against McDuffie, which is so hard to do. Had a hurdle play, too, which you love to see. And that Cowboys offensive line, by the way, is playing unbelievably good football, too. That is, to be able to keep Dak up as much as they did was impressive. And on the defense side of the ball, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I did a lot of talking about this on the Philadelphia podcast. There's a little clip of me talking about the Dallas-Philadelphia game. If you want to go see me break this Dallas defense in depth, head on over to that. But I'm just going to get the basic points out of the way. Quinn Williams and Demarion Overshown have completely changed his defense. Both of them came back after the deadline. Overshown from injury, Quinn Williams obviously by trade, and both of them have been awesome. They have both been so good, and they have fixed so many of the problematic issues on this defense. I really did like their corner, Siobhan Ravel, who was a third-round pick for them, and he has been absolutely great. Also came back right around the deadline. So those three players, not only Logan Wilson as well. So there's 4 or 5 new starters on that defense, and you could tell that is a whole new unit. And Dallas is one game really. They beat Detroit, and pretty much anything's available to them. They just have to beat Detroit, and then a few things have to break their way. I don't think the wild card is going to be a possibility for them, by the way. For Cowboys fans that are looking to the wild card as like their path in, I don't see that. I'm going to be honest. I think the Niners are going to go to 10-4, and then from there it's going to be really hard for Dallas because if the Niners win one more game, that path is dead. I don't think Green Bay is going to lose enough games to get them to that spot, and I definitely don't think Seattle is. So right now, in all likelihood, Dallas is probably out. But what I would say is with the way that Philadelphia has been playing and how bad they've been playing, if Dallas can find a way against Detroit, because again, that is their season, they have to win out. If Dallas can find a way against Detroit, especially because Amon-Ra is likely going to be out, I think there's a path. Because I don't, especially if Philadelphia loses to the Chargers, there's going to be something there. And I'm very excited to see how that plays out, especially because now I think Philadelphia has a good chance of splitting with Washington because Washington looks so good. Or not so good, but good enough to knock out a team any given Sunday, which they did not look like that before. So we're going to look towards that. All right. That is all for the games. Let's talk about the little tidbits here. After Monday night, Drake May is the MVP of the league. He is now the pretty considerable favorite after Matthew Stafford collapsed on Sunday. My God, a loss that the Rams could not afford given their on their path to the 1 seed. Now it's going to be a pretty uphill battle. They're going to have to win out in all likelihood to get the 1 seed. But Drake May is the MVP favorite now with, I think I want to see it was like minus 130, and Matthew Stafford's now in the pluses. I know at the beginning, or not at the beginning, even a few weeks ago, I said Jonathan Taylor was the MVP, and this was after the Falcons game. But now that the Colts offenses seem to grind to a standstill, which is a little unfortunate, because I really did love that Colts team. I think now that it is pretty obvious that Drake May is the MVP, especially if you look at the way he's doing it, the weapons he has. Even like the Giants' defensive line is really good. And I was watching that game, and even when Drake May was under pressure, he was just like calmly moving through it. His offensive line is not particularly great. His receivers are not particularly great, but he has been great. He is elevating this team, and they are way ahead of schedule, and they are, in all likelihood, going to be the 1 seed in the AFC. Very excited to see what Drake May does in the playoffs. And Drake May, man. Drake May. No, it's Drake May. There we go. He has the best deep ball in the entire league. It's not particularly close. He had this beautiful throw to Kyle Williams. Oh, my God. Absolute dot over his shoulder, and then Kyle Williams somehow able to get both feet down. Drake May has been so freaking good. There's only so much praise I can give. I think the biggest thing for me with Drake May, even more so than the deep passing, which is like his pocket awareness is genuinely unlike anything I've seen from a second-year quarterback. He just sort of like, it seems like he has 10 eyes in his head, right? He can like just shift away from one defender, spin away from another. And frankly, I look at him like, where the hell did you even see that guy? He just has such a natural feel for the pocket, and it's part of what's making this Patriots team so hard to stop. Moving on, we got the Eagles fans egging Kevin Patullo's house. I'm going to be honest. Like, probably the number one comment I get on anything nowadays is fire Kevin Patullo. Which, even when I'm not talking about the Eagles, I'm getting a fire Kevin Patullo comment somewhere. And his house got egged at this point, apparently to the point of vandalism. I have yikes in there because I don't know how many eggs you have to throw for it to be vandalism. Let's first start by saying, why the fuck are you doing this? It is way like, you egg his house. What the hell is that going to do? Seems like he's only going to get more and more mad at Philly. You're going to get more inside zone out of shotgun for you. Enjoy it. Like, that is just like, why are you doing that? I will also give some credit because at this point they are spending $1 per egg to do that. And it's Philadelphia. So, and probably it might be some like organic cage free eggs. So maybe you're looking like $1.50 per egg. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because they invested some freaking money into egging Patullo's house. Again, to the point of vandalism. So I don't know what that means. Is there like a law? Is it like 80 eggs or more and then it's vandalism? Because if so, if they dropped $50 to egg his house, like, I'm almost impressed. But no, in all seriousness, when it comes to Patullo, like, Patullo has been absolutely horrible for them. No way around it. Patullo is probably one of the worst OCs in the entire NFL. Not only does I've said that this offense can be one of the best offenses in football. They have so much talent on that side of the ball. But frankly, he's using a Lambo, and he has a Lambo, and he's using it like a Toyota Camry. That is the analogy I made last week, and it is still a perfect analogy. But to say that this is all Patullo's fault is really stupid. Frankly, Jalen Hurts needs a lot of blame for this. I don't care that his counting stats look really good, because if you have just watched the games, if you have opened your eyes and not looked at the box score, you could see that Jalen Hurts isn't playing all that well. Not only especially in this Bears game, did he just miss a couple guys like that were wide open and definitely would have been touchdowns. But it just seems like with Jalen Hurts, you really do only just get the check down or the deep ball. And it's not because no one's running over the middle of the field or not running intermediate. It's just because that's just what he throws. Whether he's doing it to like protect his stats, a la like Aaron Rodgers with his like 40-2 seasons, or he just really doesn't want to throw a pick because like his idea is, if I don't turn the ball over, our defense will probably win us the game, which was true for the first 10 weeks. But now when they're starting to play some more serious offenses, or frankly when their offense is this incompetent, is no longer the case. And you also have to give a lot of blame to that offensive line and Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley has clearly not been the same running back he was last year. Any small, or it seems like last year, like you can take any small gap and take it to the house. But this year, he's missed that like big burst. And of course, that offensive line has just taken a step back. Whether that's because of the injury to Lane Johnson or any other parts of that offensive line, or what I would argue is that parts of that offensive line has taken a step back, right? You went from Mekhi Becton, who had an unbelievable year last year. Frankly, not that good for the Chargers. I think he'll be back in Philadelphia next year. You replace him with Tyler Steen. That has not gone over very well. You extended Cam Jurgens. That has not gone over very well. So, two parts of that interior offensive line. Remember, I talk about the interior offensive line so much. It is so important. But it has taken such a large step back, and frankly, with it, has the run game. Let's talk about the next thing. I have Jauan Jennings and some insane post-game quotes. I have a little article linked in my notes here. I'm going to pull it up just so I can get the quotes exactly. Shelby Harris, after the game, when talking about Jauan Jennings, says, "He's a hoe, and I want that known." Like, I see why he got punched in the nuts, because he said some things I should not say to another man ever. But, like, I don't respect it when you say that, and then run behind your offensive line. That's some real soft shit, and I want that known. I see exactly why they punched him in the nuts. I'm surprised nobody has punched him in the jaw yet. As Myles Garrett has said some things that along the same lines, but are not, as strong. Just basically saying, like, if you got nothing good to say, don't say it. And he was being mean towards his players. But when it comes to Jauan Jennings, it feels like he's that type of guy, especially coming from the Bay Area, where it's like sort of like the Draymond Green thing, where if you love him if he's on your team and he's clicking, which, my God, I've voiced my frustrations with Jauan Jennings through the first 10 weeks of the year, but it seems like these last few weeks, especially with Brock back, he has seemed to click again. But outside of that, when he's on your team and he's clicking, it seems like he's just one of those guys that you love to have on your team and every other team hates. And in that respect, he is doing his role. He is talking shit. He's getting in the head of the other team's defense very clearly. So, maybe in the NFL, I would argue that the best way to go about it, I don't know how I would feel about talking a ton of shit to 350-pound men, but hey, if Jauan wants to and it's working and it's what the offense wants out of him, okay. I think it's frankly this crazy that a receiver talking shit gets so much in the head of a defensive lineman. I really do want to know what he said. Whether we can somehow eventually get some quotes on it. Maybe we mic up Jauan Jennings for the next game just because I really want to hear what he has to say at this point. But I will say, out of the Browns, Shelby Harris, that is quite uncool to say that a man deserves to get punched in the nuts. Frankly, I don't care what. Like, you don't punch another man in the balls. If you're gonna like fight somebody, fight them like a man. Don't just like cheap shot their dick. I don't know how else to put it. Like, no one deserves to get punched in the balls. I don't know. Maybe Shelby Harris just hasn't been punched in the balls. Maybe he hasn't gotten a ball tap in his career. But I I find that very hard to believe that. Anyways, I'm gonna stop there before I make stupid jokes and people take me out of context. Let's talk about the Vikings, who had a worse debut. Max Brosmer. I forgot I wrote this. I said, who had a worse debut, Max Brosmer or Nathan Peterman? The answer, by the way, is Nathan Peterman because he had 5 interceptions in a single half and got benched. But that is not giving credit to Max Brosmer because Brosmer had one of the worst throws I've ever seen in my entire life. Hard stop. He was rolling out of the pocket. It is a 3-0 game. Not only is it 3-0, when you have a freaking 4th-string quarterback in, take the fucking points. My God, Kevin O'Connell. But whatever. I guess he wants to be aggressive. Try and, make it 7-3. Especially because their defense has been playing so good up to that point where it felt like you could hold them to maybe like 10 points for the game. So I guess in that respect I could see it. But they decide to go for it. Brosmer boots out. Play is dead. Most of the time you take the sack, you live to fight another day. Maybe you throw it out of bounds. What does Brosmer do? He sees the man right on him. He sees DeMarcus Lawrence, and he tries to huck it. And my God, he throws it straight to the chest of Ernest Jones, who, maybe like I would have been surprised if he dropped it because it got thrown so hard right at him. But no, give credit to Ernest Jones, one of the better linebackers in this league. Just takes it to the house, no questions asked, and that was all they wrote for the Minnesota game. Yikes! Yeah, I didn't know it can get worse from JJ McCarthy, and it did. So, good news for them is that 9 is back next week. Bad news for them is that 9 is back next week. Yeah. Anyways, last thing I want to get to, I talked about this in my little Week 13 takeaways shorts. If you have not checked that out, I was really proud of that. I thought that there was a lot of good editing there. So if you want to check it out, by all means. I said that this season's setting up for an insane last 5 weeks because if you look at it, 6 out of the 8 divisions are up for grabs. And not only that, but most of these teams will play each other multiple times. In the NFC North, NFC South, sorry. We have Tampa and Carolina, who will now play twice in the next 5 weeks, and they're basically neck and neck. So we will figure out who wins that division probably just through those 2 games. And this is something where last week it would have been like, oh, obviously Tampa's going to win it. But Carolina, man, 1 week you can get the Carolina that we saw play against San Francisco, and their offense is clearly inept. Another times Bryce Young is just fucking dealing, and then they can force turnovers because Carolina just has a lot of talent on the defense side of the ball. I talked about them a lot last week. If you haven't, go check that out. But Carolina can do some damage. NFC East, we have the Eagles or the Cowboys now. This is likely going to require a collapse from Philadelphia because they don't play each other anymore. But frankly, the collapse is already like the hard part of them needing to collapse is done. So they would have to just lose. I think they're a game and a half back. Dallas is. So Dallas has to win out, and then that would give them a record of they would end up being 11-5-1 if they win out, and then they would need Philadelphia to drop 2 games. I want to say, and then that would be Philadelphia at 11-6, Dallas at 11-5-1. That would give them the division. Yeah, at this point, I'd say anything's possible with both these teams because Dallas is surging, and if they get past Detroit, it's honestly going to be pretty easy sledding from there. And then for Philadelphia, I mean, it just hasn't been great at all. Thankfully for them, their schedule is pretty light near the end, but if they lose the Chargers, really anything could be possible. In the North, it looks like this is going to be a 2-man race between Chicago and Green Bay with all the problems that Detroit has. And Chicago and Green Bay play twice. We will see them on Week 14 in a primetime afternoon slot because there's the other games that are horrible in the afternoon. So for all intents and purposes, they play on primetime. It's going to be fun. Very, very excited for that. NFC West, we have the Rams, Seahawks, or Niners. The way this shakes out, if the Rams beat the Seahawks and win out, they will have the division. If the Seahawks beat the Rams in week, I want to say 16, then pretty much everything goes to a standstill. It'll all in likelihood just be ties. And then we will have the Niners and the Seahawks in week 18 probably duke it out for the division. Granted, that is like if everyone wins out. right now, probably the most plausible scenario is still the Rams handling business on week 16 and winning, and then winning the division because the Seahawks or the Niners drop a game somewhere. But if the Seahawks beat the Rams week 16, then really anything is possible. I really, really hope, maybe it's just me being selfish. I'll be back home for that game. So I'll be able to go to Levi's and watch Seahawks Niners. I'm very much excited for that. I'm actually booking a red-eye flight so I can do that. But since Seattle plays San Francisco on week 18, I really, really hope that'll be for the division. And honestly, with that Rams loss to the Panthers, we could see that. The AFC North, it's going to be a cluster now between Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. Who would have thought we'd get that? With Pittsburgh playing Baltimore still, we also get that in week 14, and we get Cincinnati playing Baltimore as well. So for Cincy, Pittsburgh playing Baltimore is kind of rough for them because they just need both these teams to lose every game. And Pittsburgh and Baltimore look horrible right now. So if I'm being honest, even though I've always been a big Ravens guy, I've picked the Ravens to make the Super Bowl for the last few years, which has made me look very dumb in front of a lot of people. Yeah, that one's unfortunate. If frankly, I think the only team that could make a ton of noise out of here is Cincinnati. So we'll see. I really do hope Cincy ends up winning the North because that'd frankly be an insane story. And there'd be so much to talk about on this podcast. The AFC South, it's a cluster now between the Jags, Texans, and Colts. The Jags play the Colts twice, and the Texans just played the Colts last week, and they will play the Texans, or they will play the Colts in week 18. Frankly, we don't know anything about how this is going to play out. I don't even have a guess. Actually, no, I do have a guess, and that is because that is the one team I've been pounding the table for all this time. I think Houston's going to end up winning this division. I'm so confident about Houston. That when they start off 0-3, I was still just saying, find an offense that gives you 17 to 20 points per game. And you know what? They put up 20 points last week, and they won because their defense is that good. Even with the Colts getting basically gifted a touchdown, even though the Texans also got gifted a touchdown, all they needed was 20, and they got there. So I think that that'll wrap it up for the podcast. I just wanted to get those little tidbits in before we were done here. I thought we were going to be short. We ended up running really long. So I want to thank you guys all for listening. If you somehow got to the end of this, I'd appreciate the last little bit of your support, maybe a like, maybe a subscription. If not, hey, I understand. Thank you guys so much for listening. It has been a phenomenal time with you. I have to go catch my flight, but hey, that'll be all. Thank you guys so much.